move forward.
Thank you very much, Thomas Porges. Now we move on to our next story. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met Russia's top security official, Sergei Shoigu, in Pyongyang, state media KCNA has reported. Kim and Shoigu are said to have discussed a special military operation in Russia's Kursk region, which borders Ukraine. They also discussed cooperation plans for Moscow's rebuilding of Kursk region. State media reported that plans to commemorate the heroic feats of North Korean soldiers involved in the region were also part of the talks. Shoigu said that North Korea will send 5,000 military construction workers and 1,000 sappers to the region to help rebuild infrastructure following Ukrainian incursions that North Korean troops helped repel. This visit marked the second meeting between Kim and Shoigu in less than 2 weeks. South Korea condemned the move, calling it a violation of UN sanctions and urging an immediate halt to such cooperation. Kim Jong-un has repeatedly expressed unconditional support for Russia's policies amid concerns that Pyongyang may be receiving advanced military technology and economic support in return. In November, Russia and North Korea signed a mutual defense treaty agreeing to support each other in case of any aggression. Now we move on to Middle East. Israeli tank fire killed at least 59 people and wounded over 220 others in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis, according to Palestinian medics. The incident occurred as a large crowd gathered near aid trucks in hopes of receiving food. Reportedly, Israeli tanks initially allowed the crowd to approach before firing shells into the area. The Israeli military acknowledged firing near an aid distribution truck that got stuck in the area, saying it was reviewing the details in a statement. The IDF said it regretted harm to civilians and claimed it tries to minimize such incidents while ensuring troop safety. Palestinian health officials say this was the deadliest single-day toll since aid deliveries resumed in Gaza last month. In total, at least 73 people were killed across Gaza in a separate strike and clashes. Authorities in Gaza report that 397 people seeking food aid have been killed since late May. Since the war began in October 2023, Gaza's health ministry says nearly 55,000 Palestinians have been killed. Israel's campaign followed Hamas attacks that killed 1,200 people and took around 250 hostages. Now we move on to our next story. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has clarified that the recent ceasefire with Pakistan was achieved through direct military talks, not by U.S. mediation. Modi spoke with the U.S. President Donald Trump during a call at the G7 summit in Canada. Trump had earlier claimed that the U.S. helped mediate the ceasefire after the 4-day conflict in May, but India says the talks happened only between India and Pakistan, and on Pakistan's insistence, the conflict began after an attack in Indian Kashmir, which New Delhi blamed on Pakistan-backed terrorists. India responded with cross-border strikes under Operation Sindoor. During the call, Trump expressed support for India's fight against terrorism. Modi invited Trump to visit India later this year for the Quad summit, an invitation Trump accepted. The two leaders planned to meet at the G7, but Trump left early due to tensions in the Middle East. Now we move on to the Middle East. U.S. forces have withdrawn from 2 additional bases in northeastern Syria, accelerating a troop drawdown that has raised concerns among Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. Reporters say that the Al-Wazir and Tel Baidar bases in Hasaka province were largely deserted, with only small SDF contingents present. SDF commander Mazloum Abdi warned that the reduced U.S. presence may be insufficient to contain the growing threat from members of Islamic State. ISIS activity has reportedly increased across Syria, with attacks targeting SDF forces and a resurgence of the extremist group cells in cities like Damascus. This development comes amid heightened regional tensions following recent Israeli airstrikes on Iran. U.S. defense systems successfully intercepted Iranian-made missiles aimed at the al-Shaddadi base hours after an interview with Abdi. The Pentagon has declined to comment on the withdrawals. Now we move on to Central Asia. China and Central Asian countries have agreed to improve connectivity by land and air, officials said following a summit in Kazakhstan's capital Astana. Leaders from China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan met to discuss enhancing road and railway links, as well as opening more direct flights to China. The Chinese Foreign Ministry stated that China will work to simplify visa procedures with the 5 Central Asian nations and explore the possibility of opening consular offices in the region. Additionally, China, along with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, plans to accelerate the modernization of existing port facilities and evaluate the need for new ports to support growing trade. During the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping signed a treaty aimed at elevating ties with Central Asia, emphasizing deeper cooperation on trade, energy, and infrastructure with this resource-rich region. Now we move on to Africa. In Kenya, a police officer has been arrested for shooting an unarmed civilian during protests in Nairobi on Tuesday. The protests were sparked by the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. A disturbing video aired by Citizen TV shows 2 officers beating a man before one fired at him as he tried to flee. The victim, identified as a face mask vendor, was seen with a severe head wound. Police spokesperson Muchiri Nyaga confirmed the arrest of the officer involved. Protests have erupted across Kenya demanding justice for Ojwang, who died in police detention on June 8. Public anger intensified after an independent autopsy revealed he had been assaulted, contradicting earlier police claims of suicide. Demonstrations also spread to Mombasa, where police clashed with protesters. Amnesty International condemned the violence, reporting incidents of motorcyclists attacking protesters. Kenya's President William Ruto has called Ojwang's death heartbreaking and unacceptable. Now we move on to South America. A Colombian court has ordered the country's lower house to redo its vote on a major pension reform, citing procedural irregularities. The reform, approved by both chambers last year, aims to expand pension access and reduce state subsidies. However, it will not take effect until the court gives final approval. Lawmakers have 30 session days to revote, and President Gustavo Petro is expected to call for extraordinary sessions. Meanwhile, Colombia's Senate has approved a revised labor reform bill after weeks of political tension. The reform includes stricter labor protections, limits app-based worker exclusivity, and mandates Social Security contributions from delivery drivers. President Petro has threatened a referendum to bypass legislative delays, but the government now says it may shelve that plan if the final bill aligns with its goals. The next legislative session begins in July. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring